my friends. I've been sitting here monitoring, as we all are, I guess, to one degree or another, all of the kind of incoming indications of what's headed our way. And the kind of the general overview is essentially that every indication suggests that this all gets wilder and crazier the closer we get to not only the election in the United States, but the end of the year, kind of. And that doesn't really turn until the first of next year. And when you suggest that it's going to get wilder and so on, it's really is reaching the kind of the crisis of the conflict between the two forces. You know, people call them white hats and black hats and whatever and so on, but whatever you want to call them, there clearly is a conflict in the works, and the conflict is around a set of conditions and situations that have a distinct known end point. That is to say, there's a place out here. Lots of folks say it's 2027, maybe it's earlier than that. We had Dolly Saffron here, the transition talks this last time, and her ET contacts are saying that you're going to have a big solar flare and it's going to happen no later than 2 years from now. Could be right away. There was a time, it's been a number of years now ago, but that I had three independent, unconventional to be sure, sources, all of whom said that 2027 or 2028 was when there was going to be a major solar flare, and that was the end point where everything kind of changed. Now, the folks who are driving all of the chaos and the uncertainty in this world and the increasingly shrill character of our lives all know about this. There is something that is inbound on kind of in cosmic terms, at least, that kind of on a date certain. I mean, if you were off a year or two in cosmic terms, it wouldn't mean anything. And so there's something of extraordinary significance, or a number of things of extraordinary significance are clearly inbound. And some of those, like a solar flare, may not have any obvious direct relationship to the behavior and the activities on this planet. On the other hand, there are plenty of suggestions that the potential events and the future that's on our horizon is very much being driven by information and knowledge that is not available to most of all of us. That there is something, it's really quite obvious to me at least, is that there is something out there that is where the window closes and everybody knows the window closes and you can't get out of the building. And that the game is over with, and somebody takes all the chips and it's just the end. And so there is an significant increasing a kind of energy and effort that's just sequential events that are going on, that they're kind of trying everything that they can, one after another, with increasing amplitude and implications, to try to capture as many chips on the table as you can before the game is over with. And that means, in practical terms, that um, that everything that is in the quiver, as they say, uh, is going to come out until they've either won or they've lost. I mean, it's kind of existential in those kinds of terms. And you've got indications of this all over the place. I mean, you've got people like Martin Armstrong, who's saying next year starts a global civil war that's going to go for 2 years, and a global general uprising across the planet from of people, of citizens rising up against their government. And at the same time, guys like Cliff High are using certainly different language, but saying variations on the same thing. And just every other day, there's another article about how the West and Russia are rapidly moving toward World War III and a nuclear exchange, um, and that's kind of just the beginning. What's important to understand here is that this is for all the chips. This is a really, really big deal, and for reasons that are not obvious to me, the neocons and all these guys, they're prepared to run us into World War III and nuclear weapons. I mean, they're talking about it. They're putting Americans are in Russia now. American military people who are inside of Russia, and doing attacks and whatever they're doing, and you just know that all these red lines they talk about it, they've just been trampled all over the top of them, headed in country. And a guy like Putin is shown that he doesn't sit there and just keep taking it forever. Now, one of the problems of this is that this doesn't stop at a nuclear exchange. There is a whole set of capabilities that are very little known outside, even in the military in general, or at least that used to be the case. I don't know what it is now, but there are capabilities, scalar capabilities, electronic, electromagnetic, but scalar things that you don't know anything about. Now, you got a taste of it maybe from directed energy weapons that they've been using to start fires all over the place, but that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, because this stuff is really weird, and it gets into kind of other dimensional invisible space, and it does things that are incomprehensible, impossible in theory. And what you really don't want is that you can make the case that we can all live through a few tactical nuclear weapons, and maybe people get smart and quit doing this stuff. But let me tell you, if it really continues, and the parties on both sides of this thing think that if there's no way that they can afford to lose, and that it becomes existential for them, then you're into Armageddon kind of big time stuff. And so I think that it's important as we go forward here, as has been obvious in other things that I've talked about, that we have some sense of preparation or some effort, some commitment to preparation for whatever is coming downstream. This is really not stuff you want to get surprised about because you're out of time and money and ideas, and there's just no place to go, and it generates fear like crazy. And so you really need to know something about this. Now, the thing that precipitates and encourages me to talk about this is that I and many others, Greg Bright, Penny Kelly, the rest of some of us, are really seriously interested in preparing. And I mean that kind of writ large, not just food and water and whatever. But there's kind of an emotional preparation and maybe even a spiritual preparation for being able to position yourself going into this space. I mean, this is the game. This is the last inning, the ninth inning of the last game of the World Series, or whatever other metaphor you'd like to use. And it is literally, I would argue, I believe, the reason why we're all here. That we're here to play and be active into this extraordinary kind of transition from one era to another one, from one kind of world to another one. And the way you kind of play an significant role for you, all of us have our own reasons and things that we're supposed to do, and so they're significant for us. The way you play your significant role is not to be dead, right? I mean, there's a kind of a assumption here that we do what we're supposed to do, most of us at least, if we're alive. And so what we really need to do is make sure is all the rules change and the institutions don't work, and the services, are erratic, and you can't tell what's real, and on and on. Our job is to rise to the occasion, to get up to a new level of kind of perspective and understanding and capability. Now, but you can't do that if you don't know what's coming downstream or have an idea that something is coming downstream. Now, that's the reason why many of us have spent so much time trying to talk about kind of getting ready and what that means in different kinds of ways. Now, what happens regularly when we do these kinds of presentations and these videos and so on is that we get mail, we get messages, we get responses from people, good people for sure, who say, "Why are you generating so much fear? I mean, we're supposed to be loving, and we're not supposed to be products of this whole and general environment. We're supposed to be above it." But what you talk about when you say all these things, all you do is generate fear. And we want, they essentially say we don't want to live like that. We want to live in love and light and those kinds of things. Now, there's an interesting kind of tension associated with that idea and the need to be prepared. Because, as I said, if you're not prepared for in multi kind of dimensional ways, like I say, if it's not emotionally and if it's not spiritually as well as physically, um, then then you get driven very quickly into fear because you just run out of options. I've been reading a number of books because of my interest in activities back here in Berkeley Springs and responsibilities in some cases. Um, been reading about uh, different books about what happens if an electromagnetic pulse, significant electromagnetic pulse hits this country, and what it's like living in a world where there is no electricity and no internet and those things, because that then cascades very, very rapidly into no water and no food and no heat or any, it just, no transportation. It just, it, people are civil for about 2 days. And then the whole social fabric starts to come unglued. And it all revolves around food, frankly, because if you can't have transportation and you can't have refrigeration and any number of other kind of things because there's no electricity, then you rapidly run out of food. And then people start doing things that never in their life they thought they'd do because they are in extremis and their families starving and their kids are starving. And then all the rules go away. And uh, there is uh, and when you spend time to kind of dig into that and look at it a little bit to get a sense of what happens if the worst case scenario, electromagnetic pulse happens, or somehow there's an attack that takes down the grid, which, by the way, is really quite possible and quite real. I was just with somebody the other day who we were talking about this up in South Dakota on the trip that I just came off of, and they were telling me a story that they uh, had a nephew who was whose job it was to working with the power company and among other things to install these big tran- transformers, and they had just spent a whole lot of money and installed a big transformer, and he said a couple of 3 weeks later these guys with badges came along and said, we're from the federal government and we need to look at your transformer. And they said it was brand new. We just got it. And they went and looked at the transformer, which had been manufactured in China. And they found that there was all kinds of software inside of it that would allow the whole transformer to be shut down remotely from somewhere else. And if you, again, have spent the time to look at any of these kind of things, what you know is that there are very few. There's literally 9 kind of key nodes throughout the country that if you took out those distribution nodes, and they're not big things. I mean, years ago it's still classified, but back when I was read into these kinds of things, it was the kind of thing where they talked about the possibility of just throwing hand grenades into these installations. And if you did 9 of them, it'd bring the whole grid of the country down. And all I'm saying is that very few people, I'd venture to say almost nobody, you know, the very, I could probably, then you could count the number on one hand of people who have spent the time to look into what the implications of that might be and would be, and how it would threaten um, the ability to sustain yourself and stay alive. And so there are serious kind of implications associated with might what might be incoming in the next, say, year, certainly in the next few months, as they try to keep dominate the election in this country and similar elections other places in the world. And and so that's what drives a number of us to try to kind of raise the flag and say we got this, something else is coming in here, and it's really going to be different, and we got to rise again to the occasion. So when I get emails and communications from folks saying, all you're doing is selling fear, um, then uh, I have to, I search for kind of metaphors or explanations that to help communicate better what we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing. And the best one I can think of is a hurricane inbound. I mean, some of you live in Florida and you would resonate with this. I think that if you were out on the coast of Florida and there was a it was 100 years ago and there was a big hurricane that was out there and it was inbound and you had no idea about it, no way to know what it was, then what it would be is both a huge surprise and it would be disastrous if it came over the top of you. I mean, you would not know what was going on. You would have no framework from which to effectively kind of deal with it. Um, and, uh, uh, and and hence all the, that's why all of the warning systems have been put in place. The satellite systems, they fly airplanes out there, all kinds of things to try to anticipate where this big disastrous storm is going, and a sense of its kind of magnitude and destructive capability so that you can be prepared and so that you can do what you can so that it is uh, so that you can stay alive to fight another day. And So I would ask in the middle in this kind of a situation, are you interested in being warned beforehand that there's an incoming storm? I mean, are you going to watch the weather station, the weather channel to see which way it's going? Are you interested in doing that, or would you rather be ignorant about the whole thing? Would you rather be drinking your Mai Tais out on a lanai and be oblivious to the extraordinary kind of event that's inbound and that you could know about? You could, because the information is out there, and then you could prepare and you could decide whether you needed to move or batten up your house or whatever you needed to do. But if you don't, if you're not aware of these kinds of things, then you're really out of options. Um, and most of the people that I know, if they're kind of practical and rational about all this thing, said, yeah, we'd like to know what's coming so we can decide what to do. But that then raises the question, or the issue. It says, how do you effectively respond to the inbound hurricane and not go into fear and not go, because fear is the thing that you really don't want to be in here. You want, and you want to be prepared, and in being prepared, have the sense of well-being and belief that you're going to be able to make it through whatever is going to happen. I mean, that's what preparation does for you. It gives you confidence. And but at the same time, if you're sitting there watching this hurricane come inbound and they're, you know, whipping it all up and telling you how horrible it's going to be, and the surge is going to be, golly, it's going to be 15 feet of water, and on and on, and they're going to tell you how you you can you can become uh, incapacitated. Really, and that's really the case in terms of the kind of situation we're all talking about here. Is that how do you operate into this amazing space of great uncertainty and chaos? And how do you, on one hand, become prepared? And how do you become, aware? And how do you uh, uh, certainly not be ignorant and out of options in a situation like that? But at the same time, how do you not let your emotions run away with it? How do you maintain a sense of stability in the middle of all of this, that the likes of which you've never seen before? I mean, this is not just a hurricane because you know a hurricane and you know what the conditions and what it is, and the wind's going to blow and it's going to rain like crazy. This is, in a really strange space where there's a whole lot. I mean, it's already obviously Spain, so you've got people running around with masks, and you don't know what's real, and uh, they're trying to start amazing kind of wars, and it's just, I mean, it's unlike anything that certainly I've experienced in my life. So how do you balance those two things? Well, I would suggest this, and some of you have probably heard this before, but I think it merits revisiting. Is that this is an issue, as far as I'm concerned, between the head and the heart, and 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 by the heart I mean your emotions, and how you get emotionally attached to something. And so there's and by the way, the military understands this in spades, because they do all this training and all these things and put you in all these situations of extremis so that you get familiar with and ready for and trained for, so that when the big event happens, that you your mind is still working, and in fact it's working very well, and your senses are up and you're ready for whatever the situation is, even though it's dangerous, it's disaster. I mean, you could die, and you can't operate with those ideas in your mind. And so what what you need to do is be aware, and that's your mind. You need to be informed. You need to have the cognitive kind of stuff running so that you are up to date, that you know the options. That's why we talked about scenarios so much, and other things that you can think. You have a framework that you can use that is a robust, sophisticated kind of assessment of what the possibilities might be. You then do uh, implications analysis to find out, what then whether you do this in a formal way or you just do it kind of naturally, you say, so if that would happen, then what would I do and what would I need? You do contingency planning. Again, you all do this without even thinking about it, but you can do it in formal ways. You can then do contingency planning and say, okay, so what have I got to put in case for that one or for that scenario or for that and that one? And so you generate a sense of preparation and readiness by being intellectually engaged and with all of this stuff. And uh, the uh, but you cannot let it go to fear. You cannot give in to what the media and everybody around you is trying to get you to do. They want you to be afraid, and they are trying to capture you through your emotions. And and they're telling you how horrible it is and how horrible it's going to be and how the riots are going to be on the streets and all the other kind of stuff. And all I'm trying to say is you got to be able to just watch that, listen to it, and uh, and um, understand it from an intellectual point of view, but not from an emotional or from your heart point perspective. And uh, that is the kind of essence of um, what we have to do in order to get through the times that are ahead. Now, one of the things that allows you to give you the stability to do that is to have this larger framework, this context uh, that you have embraced, that you understand, that makes sense to you. It's your paradigm, frankly, that supports the fact that you're going to make it through all of this okay. And so you got to be prepared, but then you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You can say, I can get from here to there. And and that in terms of where we're going in the next few months and years is about is is about kind of pers- a personal perspective on how this reality works. It's about uh, presuming, for instance, in my case, presuming that the system is benign and loving, right? At its essence, it's love. And these experiences and these things that we go through are going to be confronted with are all about testing us and giving us an opportunity to rise to an occasion and become somebody better than we've been in before, expanding our awareness, as I've talked about. But it's uh, but it's more than that. It's presuming that this is not unique to us and that others have done this on other planets before, and that there's outside help that is available to us, and that if we learn how to do that, and there are internal capabilities that we have that this whole thing is designed to release and 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 just produce just a new human, somebody that where that's what this is about, that there is a purpose to all of this. And so it's you know we've used the example of childbirth before, that it's traumatic, but there's light, there's a beautiful kind of ending to it. and and it's very much like that, it seems to me, not having ever given birth to any children that I know of. This is I I can speak at arm's length here of this, but the notion is that there is something that's kind of come out of the back end of this thing that is really cool, and it's going to be really cool because we have worked our way through this hurricane of events that is inbound in the next couple 3 weeks and months. I mean, and uh, it's you got to hang on. You got to embrace that. You got to own that. You got to hang on to that because if you don't, then I will tell you that again that all of the money that's going into the media is all designed to make you afraid and make you dependent and uh, convince you that you're small and powerless and you got nothing you can do about all of this. This is about this is essentially an initiation, right? This is essentially an event of that an extraordinary kind of event, the likes of which you've never experienced before, and that will that you're going to be a different person when you come out of the back end, and that you'll be welcomed into a greater or significant part of life or community that comes out of the back end. And so I think it's really important, the notion of ignorance being blissful is not very useful in this kind of space. I think we've all given brains and minds for a reason, and we need to use them, and we need to have common sense and move forward here. It's um, I think rather than continue this, I'll only say in passing that the the outcome of this whole thing is really amazing, just extraordinary. The kind of new world that come out of the back end, no matter which of the uh, positive likely scenarios. I mean, you got to believe. By the way, there's another component in terms of that building this kind of contextual base, and that is that um, you got to believe that 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 we can win this game. This is not a game that you cannot win. I mean, this business of human evolution and rising to a new level and to a new dimension or something like that. I mean, clearly it's baked into the cake of this thing that we can do this. And so and our job is to figure it out and to find it and to do that. And so there's all these kind of externalities that all point to this being really great if we can just kind of stay in the groove and watch the horizon and be sensitive to all the incoming stuff and so on, and respond to our community, stay in community with other like-minded folks, because it's really hard to do this by yourself. So hang in there. This is going to be really quite interesting, to say the least. And it, and if by some chance it really doesn't turn into the kind of disruption that seems to be inbound, then as the people in the prepping business say, plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? And you'll have a lot of a lot of food that you can eat for a long time that's in your stash that you've kept in case that you'd run out of food. So it'll all be all right. So thanks, and see you again.